right. Testing. Let's sound check if anybody's out there. Sound check. Joe Sweat is in the chat already. Let me know if the sound is okay. All right. Welcome everybody to Canhammer TV. It is December. It is dark. Oh my God. I got up. I was working already and it was like 8:30 till the sun came out. And then by the time I finished work, it was dark already. The most depressing time of year for sure. But only a few more weeks before it's the longest night, and then it will start to get light again. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, well, welcome everybody to Custodes Tactica episode 61. So this episode was supposed to be unit by unit predictions for the new book, but GW has dropped a ton of previews on us in the last 3 days, and there's too much to talk about. So we'll do the predictions at some other point. When we have that lull over Christmas, we'll do our predictions or something. But there's too much to talk about right now, so we're going to talk about what we know instead of speculating about what we don't know. Okay, so that's what we'll be talking about tonight is the preview dump we've had over the past week of stuff from our new book. And before we delve into that, just want to give people an update about Canhammer Team Tournament 2022, which is April 23rd and 24th of next year. Do check out the Canhammer Facebook page, and there's an event page for it. Follow those pages if you're interested in coming. All the dates and everything are up there. All the information you need for registration and everything is up there. The BCP has been made, so we are keeping a close eye on COVID and Omicron. I'm not sure who came up with that name. It's a sweet name, but what happened to the Greek alphabet? Anyway, so we're keeping an eye on Omicron and COVID levels and travel, all that situation. For now, it is still a go, but we'll keep a close eye on things. Okay, so that's all I'm going to talk about for Canhammer Team tonight. Before we delve into Custodes, we are going to talk quickly about the stuff that came out today or recently about the new missions. So the GT pack for 2022, as always, every year we expect new missions. And so this 2022 will be no different. The missions will be changing. Goonhammer published some stuff about what they knew about it. There's going to be some kind of exhibition match at the Open, I think is this weekend, or might be next weekend, I can't remember. And so, the primary scoring is apparently changing. It's going to be not 5, 10, 15 anymore. It's going to be like 4, 8, 12. And then to get to 45, you need to achieve some other primary type objectives. And then some of the secondaries will be changing, obviously. Some will be gone, some will stay, some will change. And the missions themselves will be changing as well. So the whole game could be very different in and around the beginning of the year when we're expecting our book. So not only do we have a new book to contend with, which with many more rules than we used to have, but also pretty much new missions, new game possibly. So that's fun times. Okay, so look forward to that. I'm sure we'll find out more about that in the weeks to come. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the first thing that they leaked on us, not leaked, but previewed for us, which was the new troops that we're getting. So they previewed GSC troops, Tau troops, and Guardians. So we'll talk about that quickly. Guardians. Okay, let me just get this set up here. All right, so hopefully you can see that. All right, okay, so this was like last week or something when they previewed how troops are changing for the next 3 codexes. And so we'll skip to what we want, which is these guys. So Custodian Guard are getting better. So first and foremost, they're D3 weapons. Well, the spear and the swords are both going to flat 2. Now, the cynical out there will say, well, flat 2 is not good against -1 damage. Sure. D3 might occasionally give you 2 damage, but most of the time going to give you 1 damage. While the potential is there, it's not a potential that you can rely on. And not everything in the game is -1 damage. So 2 damage, I still prefer knowing what I'm going to do versus having spikes. So, and as we have long thought, we will be losing D3 damage, hopefully across our entire army. So this is good. This is first proof that this is, in fact, going to happen. So they're going to flat 2 damage and now going up to strength 7, which is fantastic. Strength 6 is always a weird strength. It's like right in the middle, 5, 6. 7 at least now gets you onto wounding toughness 7 on 4s, and then also keeps wounding everything else fine. So this changes that break point between spears and axes. Now they're closer together, strength 7, strength 8, assuming axes are the same, which we don't know. But it's a good change. You can never say no to more strength. It gives them that little bit of extra versatility against vehicles and other T7 models. So I think that's a great change. Nothing else has changed. There's still -3 and, of course, flat 2 damage. And range-wise, they have now changed the shooting on the sword to match the spear, because they're the same weapon, basically. Except that the spear is, of course, pistol 2, 12 inches instead of the spear shooting. So good changes for Guardians. Now, what we don't know, of course, is how much they're going to cost. But so we'll have to wait for that. But at least they've been upgraded. And we also don't know what's going to happen to the Storm Shield. So these are some big unknowns as to how good Guardians will be. The other thing they put in this article is that, like the Blade Champion, our entire army is going to be Leadership 11. Yes. Now, that's not quite as good as my idea, which was to just make Custodes immune to all rules that require leadership, but this is pretty good. So Leadership 11, I believe we're the only things to go above Leadership 10. The whole army, Leadership 11, means we're basically never going to have to worry about battle shock, morale, and it's going to be much harder to land things on us that require leadership roll-offs and stuff like that. So I think that's nice. It's a welcome change. We're basically immune to battle shock now, except unless people lay a lot of debuffs on. So that's cool. Okay, so that was the first preview that started this hype train, and then we heard nothing for like a week. So now let's go talk about Sisters. So then they put out this article. I think this was on Monday, about Sisters. And so what were the things that we've always been wanting about Sisters? Number one, we wanted Sisters to be troops, so we could not have to take up elite slots, so they could fill battalion slots, patrol slots, so they could be OBSEC, all those things about being troops. And it was super annoying. So that was our number one wish, for them to be troops. And we have our wish. So the Bolter girls are now troops. The Sword girls are elites. And the Flamer girls, for whatever reason, are fast attack. Maybe they're going to get a stratagem that allows them to advance and flame or something. Who knows? I mean, they have to justify the fact that they're fast attack. So this is a great change. Finally, we have Bolter girls as troops. We know that they're going to get new warlord traits and relics, and one of the relics was spoiled later. We'll talk about in a second. And our second greatest wish was to have an HQ. So we've never had an HQ, and even though we have models that could be HQs, like Alea, but now we finally have an HQ, the Knight Centura, who you can run a whole army of sisters now. It's viable. It's possible. It's not viable, but it's possible. So you can certainly do that. But now we can have an HQ that can fill an HQ slot. It can give us what benefits sisters get. for just one guy if you want to put out an abomination aura already, assuming they still have that rule. So having the ability to just add an HQ, fill a battalion, cheap HQ is something that's great, and something that we wanted to. If you need access to their stratagems, one HQ might be able to do it. So it's a great idea. Okay, and so they showed us the stat line for the Knight Centura, which keeps the Sisters 7-inch move, which many people are not aware of and catches them off guard, but Sisters do move 7 inches. Finally, we get a Sister has 2+ weapon skill. Even the Sword Girls are 3+ weapon skill, which sucks. So she at least fits some of the lore of the Sisters of Silence, that they're supposed to be consummate swordsmen, matching even the Custodes in terms of sword play. So there it is, 2+ skill. Still T3 and Strength 3 as expected. 5 wounds for which is not bad for basically a mortal human, and base 4 attacks, which I guess that's what you get from the Sisters. I mean, they're not Custodians, Custodians are going to go up. So, 4 attacks, not too bad. Leadership 9, and 3+ save, unfortunately, because they just wear power armor. So this is cool. Finally, unfortunately, this Knight Centura just not going to survive. I mean, T3, 5 wounds, 3+ save. That's not going to survive. We'll talk about some stratagems you can use soon, in a bit about that. But, Sisters are as fragile as normal, assuming they remain T3, 1 wound, 3+ save models. They're going to be very fragile. So keep that in mind. We also don't know how many points this lady's going to be. I would say I wouldn't be surprised if they're somewhere around the 50-point mark. Hopefully not too much more expensive than that, but they are 2+ weapon skill, ballistic skill. So a 7-inch move, they could put a premium on that stuff. So I would say probably 50 points, but I'm hoping it's going to be less. And then, at the bottom here, so prosecutors, that's the name of the bolter girls, sorry, prosecutors. They're going to be troops. So now we have the girls who can do actions, fill our slots, do all those things. So finally, we got probably our top 2 wishes for Sisters of Silence. The final minor wish was that they're cleanly integrated, and so now they're just part of the book, and so that's great, although I suspect they're still going to be keyword separated. So these guys now have the keyword Anathema Psychana, which is a cool theme keyword. Of course, they're referred to as Anathema in the Master of Mankind book, which I just reread, which is amazing. So that's kind of cool that they now have that keyword. So this lady has the 6-inch aura of reroll 1s to wound, which is nice. And you can take a relic from the Adeptus Custodes Codex. Now, it doesn't say if there's going to be separate Sisters relics and Custodes relics, or they can just take Custodian relics. That would be kind of interesting. It's probably just going to be a single list, but it's going to specify who can take what. And then they spoil this Raptor Blade, which is not great, but basically replaces the Great Blade with a Strength 6 -4 D2 damage, which is basically like the old Guardian Spear. So it's great, but you know what? I wouldn't spend your relic on a 5 wound T3 3+ save model with only 4 attacks, basically. So probably not going to spend that unless you get that for free or something, but there it is. Okay. And then they get a picture of Alea, who, of course, is apparently broken up with Christopher Walken, because now we're going to get a data sheet for her, and she is going to be an independent HQ choice, and you can take her by herself without Christopher Walken. And she has a rule. I'm not sure if this is a new rule, because I can't remember the last time I looked at her data sheet, but she basically makes... she can basically make attack fight when she dies. The old Wolfen rule. So even if she dies before she fights, she still gets to attack. which is fine. I can't remember what her sword is like. It was okay, I think, but I don't think she's any different, too much different from the stat line of the Knight Centura. I don't even think she was 2+ weapon skill, to be honest, but I'd have to go back and check. But anyway, you can take her now without Christopher Walken. And the question is, though, how many points is she going to be? Because their previous points was as a pair, and so it'll be interesting to see how they divide that now. Christopher Walken points versus Alea points. But that is a model that you can get that can serve as a cool HQ model for your Sisters of Silence. Or you can use this one, which I believe just comes in the box. There you go. Okay. I think that's enough about Sisters. Oh, so no other hints in terms of synergies or anything like that, cross kind of factional stratagems or anything. So we'll see how much integration there is, or if it's just page integration. But these are some welcome changes to Sisters, and we'll see if we will be running Sisters as troops, either just as fodder or action jockeys, or will they actually be useful? We have no idea what's going to happen with the abomination rule and all that, the stratagems. They had a few very useful stratagems before, but we don't know what's going to happen to those. Okay, on to the good stuff. Okay, so the next thing that was revealed was our new kind of like chapter tactics / Necron protocol / rules. So if you've been used to Custodes basically playing very simply, that is about to change. We are getting a whole bunch of rules and terms and stances and fighting styles, and you're going to have to keep these things straight in your head. And it sounds like there's going to be a lot of flexibility, which means that you got to practice. So yeah, that's fun times ahead, I think. Let's see who's in the chat. Mr. Funktastic's here, of course. We've got C Farsight's here, and Lay caught this live very late. Oh, Denmark. It must be like 2 or 3 in the morning in Denmark. Thanks for tuning in, and thank you for your kind comments. Okay, so basically we have a new rule called a martial kata, or kata, whatever you like to call it. I'm going to call it kata just because there's like an apostrophe there, and that sounds cooler than kata. You know, kata sounds like something in, our friends down south would call it. This is a kata. Whereas a kata would be like a more of a, formal, thing to call it. So I'm going to call it a kata. You can call it whatever you want. So basically, so this was spoiled before today's Shield Host spoilers. So some of my initial comments about kata are now resolved. But so basically, we're going to be getting 6 kata. Initially, we didn't know how many. We presumed 5, 1 for each Shield Host. But now we know there's going to be 6 Shield Hosts. There's going to be 6 katas. And basically, the katas are like... it's like your command protocols or your chapter tactics, okay? And what's interesting about this, first of all, is that you have to pick 3 out of the 6 to use in that game, but you don't have to pick them until deployment is done, but before you decide first turn. So not only do you don't have to pick them until you know mission and how you deployed and what your opponent's army is, which is great. I mean, that gives you so much flexibility rather than having to put it on your army list. So that's cool. You have to pick 3. So you have flexibility, but you do have to pick one that's primary, secondary, or tertiary because you're going to have to use them in order. We'll come to that in a minute. The other thing to note is that it says you note it down secretly. And you notice here in the rule, and there may be other bits of the rule that's not spoiled here, of course, it never says at any point that you have to tell the opponent what you picked. I presume you will, and it'll be obvious once you use the rules. But it just says you have to pick one. It doesn't tell you that you have to tell your opponent what it is. in fact, at no point does it say you have to reveal what you've written down. So anyway, so what you have to do is pick 3 of them and order them in primary, secondary, and tertiary, and then each kata comes with 2 stances. Okay, so these are like fighting stances. Okay, so each kata comes with 2 stances that you use one at a time. Okay, and so what you do in your command phase at the beginning of your turn, you pick in the first turn, you have to pick a stance from your primary kata. Okay, so let's say you pick Custodes as your primary kata because it's right here. You have to pick, okay, first turn command phase, where you stance 1 or stance 2. And that lasts till your next command phase. And then in your next command phase, you must select, you have to pick another stance. And you can either pick a different stance, a different stance from the one you had, but stay in that kata, or move on to the next kata and pick one of those stances. You cannot repeat stances, and you cannot go to a previous kata. So once you move from primary to secondary kata, you can't go back to your primary kata, and once you move from secondary to tertiary kata, you can't go back to your secondary kata. And so I assume that if you went through all 3, your primary, secondary, and tertiary by turn 3, and you just skipped, and then you would have no katas for turn 4 and turn 5, because it only lasts to your next command phase. So basically, you have 6 stances to use in some semblance of order that you cannot repeat over the course of 5 turns. That's basically it. Okay, so it does require some thought in terms of what your game plan is, which katas are good at which parts of the battle, which stances you want to use based on how you're going to play and what you need to do and what your opponent is going to do. So that's a lot of tactical and strategic thinking right there in this, right after deployment, that you need to make. And so far we only have revealed 3 of these. I think 4, including the ones today. So we don't have a firm idea yet. The missions are changing, so it's hard to know right now. But basically, you're going to have to make choices right up front, and those will be significant choices in terms of either giving you buffs or being useless. I don't think they're going to hurt you in any way, but it could be just useless, or it could really help you. And the choices of that and when to activate and when to move on is going to be key to your game plan. Okay, so I hope that's clear how you use it. It's not written clearly, but in the end, it's pretty clear. Okay? Okay. So, at the time, it wasn't one of my things that was not clear if there was a list of here's the primary katas, here's the secondary katas, and here's the tertiary katas. You got to pick one of each, or if there's just a list of 6 katas and you pick them however you like. I think it's that. I think there's going to be 6 and you just pick whichever 3 you want, and they're not designated anything. And it's more clear now that that's probably how it is after today's previews. But initially when this preview came out, it wasn't clear. Maybe there was going to be 9 or 10 katas, some are primary, some are secondary, some are tertiary, but I don't think that's how it's going to go. And certainly when we go through these ones that they've previewed, it's clear that some are more kind of primary, beginning of the game, movement and shooting. Some are more to do with combat and morale, and then some are more to do with defensive defense on your opponent's turn. So Lay, initially we thought there could be more than 6, like I just said, but it just said at the end of today's article that there are 6 katas. And we now know 4 or 5 out of the 6. Okay. So that's basically it. Okay, now what we do know after today is that shield hosts will have a preferred kata, which we'll talk about later, and that means you'll be able to use for one turn both stance effects at the same time. So that's pretty cool. There's probably going to be stratagems that allow you to manipulate the kata, either double effect, extra turn, repeat, change back to primary. I suspect there may be 1 or 2 stratagems to manipulate your kata. I would not be surprised at all if we see that, but we have not had that spoiled yet. Okay. So the other question is, who gets katas? Because it just says here in your command phase, as long as you pick a unit that has this ability, the martial kata ability, to benefit. So we don't know who's going to have the martial kata rule, and we'll talk more about that when we go talk about shield hosts. Okay. Maybe we should have talked about shield hosts first. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We started. Okay, so here are 3 katas that they spoiled, that they previewed for us. So this one is called Custodes. It's supposed to be a primary kata, primary like kata, so more to do with movement and shooting. And so stance 1 allows you to roll an extra d6 when you're advancing and discard 1. So that's cool. Everybody hates rolling that 1 or 2 on the advanced roll when you really need it, and sometimes we've spent CP to re-roll it. So, and stance 2 allows you to basically count as stationary when you make a normal move or advance for shooting only. Okay, so this is cool. This helps. This helps our whole army basically shoot when they and move at the same time. We don't really have like heavy weapon guys who suffer penalties and stuff like that, but so that's really good. And obviously it helps fast units that would like to advance and still shoot, like bikes, and also our fast like Venatari units. Like it basically helps our whole army and increases mobility while still being able to put out gunfire. Question we don't know is if this will work for dreads. So we don't know, but basically this really helps us to get out that first turn and not have to think about either shooting or moving, but we can do both. So this is great, and I agree is a good primary kata to have. Okay. So the second kata that they previewed was called Dakatarai. And this is basically for the kind of secondary kata, so kind of shooting, combat, morale, like second half of the turn, basically. And this has to do with fighting. So stance 1, every time a enemy unit that's in engagement range with you piles in or consolidates, it takes -2 off of that move, which for most things means it will only move 1 inch. So this is actually, I feel, subtle, yet very powerful. By reducing the range of pile-ins and consolidates, you stop wrapping. I mean, nobody usually wants to wrap us, but you do stop the ability most of the time of people to wrap you or make it much harder. You limit a bunch of pile-in and consolidate movement shenanigans by cutting 2 inches off the movement. Even 6-inch stuff gets cut to 4-inch. That's still pretty significant, and it might stop people from touching tanks and touching other things that they did want to touch. It's subtly very good for protecting characters from getting piled into. So, like sisters, HQs, and stuff like that, they're a bit squishy. And very importantly, it probably helps you against Horde it stops people getting into engagement range of you. Because remember, the first row can attack, but then the second row has to be half of the first row. And so then it probably third and fourth rows are going to have 1 or 2 turns before they can get in to kill you, assuming you don't kill them first. So this is quite nice for limiting the number of attacks coming back at you. So I think stance 1 is subtly actually really, really nifty and powerful. And actually, I don't think I've seen this kind of rule before, limiting pile-in and consolidate moves by distance. That's pretty cool. Okay, the second stance says that every time you fight, so every time you fight, not just the first time you fight, so if you get to fight again or something, this counts, you get +1 attack, but you're just damage 1. Now, people are complaining, just damage 1 sucks. But this is clearly, and they put this in their paragraph, for hordes. So I don't know if we'll be getting attacks on our models, but let's just say that we get extra attacks. Now you're getting an extra attack, and these things are generally wound 1 anyway. And so it doesn't really matter. Your 2 damage doesn't really matter. It's just overkill. So now you lose nothing for an extra attack. And so that's really good, actually, situationally like that. The other thing is, obviously, all the -1 damage. So if you're trying to put a bunch of attacks into a Dreadnought, now you're strength 7 with your Guardian Spears. It doesn't really matter if you're only doing 1 damage, because you'll be doing 1 damage anyway with the -1 damage, but now you get a bunch of extra attacks. You're probably going to end up doing more damage. So this is good for -1 damage. And obviously, for all the 1 damage stuff that we have, this is just extra attacks. So Venatari with the bucklers, you add the Misericordia onto that. Now you get another attack. You got the claws on the Aquilon might have new life now. Now it's just basically more attacks. So this really helps a bunch of things. Even a unit of 5 Sagittarium with daggers now is putting out like 5 attacks, maybe more if they get more attacks. So that's a lot of attacks. So this is pretty good for horde clearing for sure, and even for a big unit against bigger things, because sometimes you kill things with 1,000 cuts, not a few big cuts. So yes, I do like this a lot. If GSE is good, NIDs are already good, Guard is still to come, we could be seeing months and months of horde meta in front of us. So now we have a couple of good things to help us deal with hordes. So, I mean, I can see this being very good with the books that are still to come. Okay, and then the books that are out there, Death Guard, -1 damage, Talos, -1 damage. Well, here you go. Here's one way of dealing with -1 damage, is just to hit it many more times. Okay. Aquilon Fists. So, and Demons. Yeah, Mr. Funktastic. If we see 120 pink horrors, bloodletters, I mean, this is what that's for. And even the fists on the Aquilon now go to 1 damage, no big deal, but that's still strength 10 AP 4, which most of these things don't have saves against. That basically murders all of these things with no saves, wounding on 2s. So even the fists just doing 1 damage, not a big deal. So I think this is really quite good. Okay. Now the final one, so the tertiary kata, which I suspect will be ones aimed more towards morale, but more specifically defensive ones that you use in your opponent's phase. So this is one that they've previewed called Captaris. And so this one says, every time you're attacked in melee, the hit roll cannot be rerolled. So that's great. I would have preferred -1 to hit in melee or something like that. Maybe damage reduction. Maybe we still have strats and stuff about that. But this is pretty good. No reroll hits. And if you remember that the champion has a rule that is basically transhuman on hits, so can only be hit on the 4-up. So this synergizes perfect with that, because basically you only be hit on 4-up and you can't re-roll it. You're only getting hit 50% of the time. So that's actually massively increases your toughness more than any, because if they can't even hit you, then it doesn't matter about wounding and strength and saves and all that. Right? So, we're lamenting that we may be losing 4-up invuln. Well, if you never get hit or wounded, then you don't even need a 4-up invuln. So this is an interesting maybe hint at the direction that our book is going. The second part is that everybody in engagement range other than vehicles and monsters can only fall back if they roll off and beat you, and they get an extra plus if they're fly. So that's great. Yeah, I think, generally, we would rather beat people to a pulp, especially if we get to attack first in their turn. It also prevents you from getting shot. So I think this is very useful as well, not allowing people to fall back. So that's cool. And I expect other tertiary type kata will be like defensive type things. Maybe we'll see some of our defensive stratagems like AAA, those kind of things actually make it into the form of a kata, a tertiary kata. So that might be where we see the stratagems being toned down, but maybe they end up showing themselves up that you can use for a turn or two as a kata. So there we go. Okay. So that was basically the preview of the katas. And that's 3 out of 6 of them. And we find out about 1 or 2 more in the next preview, which was hot off the press this morning. Okay, I did not expect to receive this preview. Normally we get 1 a week, but we got like 3, which was amazing. Clearly they want to hype this up because the box probably goes on pre-order next weekend. So they want to give you hype. So we'll see. And GSC also got their first preview today as well. So, okay. So this one is about shield hosts. Okay. So this is one thing we really wanted to know. What's happening with shield hosts? Are they staying Death Guardy, or are we getting rules with the shield hosts? And so now we already got previewed that we're getting the katas and that each shield host was going to have a preferred kata. So will the shield host also give us extra? Well, turns out yes. So more rules. And what I want to emphasize to people, and it's already happening on the Discord, is people got to start using the right words. We got a lot of rules now, guys, with specific terms, and it's already super confusingly written. So let's not further confuse things by using words interchangeably that are not interchangeable. Okay? So we have martial katas that give you stances, and now we have shield hosts that give you fighting styles, and fighting styles give you traits. Okay, we got to keep those words straight and use the right words, otherwise it's going to get really confusing. Okay, so what do we know? We know we have 6 shield hosts, not 5. But we are probably getting a return of the existing shield host. We already know we're getting Aquilon's shield host back. We're getting Dread host shield host back. We haven't heard about the other ones, and we know we'll come to this in a second. So we are getting some returns, maybe all of them, but we're ending up with 6 shield hosts to go with 6 katas, and each shield host will have a preferred kata. Okay, and then each shield host basically gets what's called now a fighting style, okay, which is like their chapter tactic. So, and each will also get its own warlord traits and strats and relics, just like it was before. And it looks like some of those are actually straight repeats, but we'll see. So each shield host will have a whole host of rules just for it. And it's not clear if there's going to be a rule for the shield host. Probably not. Probably the fighting style is the shield host rule. But yeah. Okay. So this thing that was spoiled here is the shield host fighting style called Magna Imperator for the Emperor's Chosen shield host, which obviously is a new name. We haven't had that. But what is not clear from this article is whether this is just the 6th new shield host that you can just choose or not choose, or if this is our new faction rule. Because what it says here, it says no matter which shield host you're pledged to, they all first and foremost serve the Emperor and can fall back on the Emperor's Chosen shield host. Asterisk. So this implies that everybody can fall back on. Now what that means, you don't know. Remember, these are not rules writers writing the articles. They are community team guys, okay? So we don't know what that means. Asterisk, bottom of the article. Asterisk. Shield hosts are temporary measures that can disband at any moment, but the Emperor's Chosen is permanent, like a big family. Weird family. I'm not sure why you say weird, but... So what does that mean? Does that mean that this Emperor's Chosen shield host is actually a faction rule? I mean, it would be super confusing because they called it shield host. So I think this is actually just a shield host that you just choose, one of the 6. However, I'll point out that Emperor's Chosen is the name of our +1 invuln rule, faction rule. So I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I asked on the GW comment stream on their preview, and there was no There was no reply back. They didn't reply to any of the people asking that question. So yeah, I think personally that this is just one of the 6. This is the new 6th shield host. Okay. Anyway, moving forward. So this fighting style is called Magna Imperator. Okay. And this has 2 traits. And so if you choose this shield host, everything in the shield host has these 2 traits. Okay. And the other thing you notice here, it says Martial Kata Rendax. We don't know what the Rendax Martial Kata is, by the way. It just says, in this case, Rendax, 2 powerful stances are adopted, giving you different choice of army bonus. Okay, so we don't know what the Rendax is. That's the one of the katas that they didn't spoil. But the 2 traits you get here are basically Master Artisan. So you get to re-roll 1 hit roll and 1 wound roll every time you shoot or fight each unit, which is amazing on an army that hits on 2s generally and wounds usually on 3s or better. Being able to re-roll a hit wound and a wound roll, a hit roll and a wound roll for free, really good. We already know how good Master Artisans is. It would be even cooler in our army. So I really like 1 hit or 1 wound. So I really like that. And so a lot of times we get the hit already, but having the wound roll reroll is super nice. And it's not ones, it's full reroll. So that's super cool. Also, it doesn't say failed, interestingly. Okay, so that's cool. And then the second trait is basically our Feel No Pain that's been rumored 4++ Feel No Pain against mortal wounds, which is great. We don't know if that has fully replaced our 6++ against psychic mortal wounds, because we don't know, as I say. And this is another reason why some people feel that this might be a faction rule, because it was rumored that we were getting it as a faction rule. But for now, it seems like it's shield host locked 4++ against all mortal wounds, which is amazing. Like, that is actually so good, especially these days. Psychic armies, mortals from shooting, AdMech, stuff like that, Drukhari, that it might actually make like psychic protection from sisters not necessary. But we'll see. So that's it. And then they use the Rendax. And they do say now in this article that if your shield host uses that kata, okay, the shield host fighting style, if you can, once per battle, you can choose a stance in that kata, that's your preferred kata, and you basically get both stance effects for 1 turn for that until the next time. And then you can still choose. So if you still chose stance 1, okay, so if your Emperor's Chosen, you choose to use your Rendax stance 1 and use your fighting style, this ability here, then you get the effects of stance 1 and stance 2 for that turn. And then for the next turn, you can choose still to use stance 2. So basically you get double turn, but 1 turn you get both stances, which can be situationally super powerful. So that's kind of cool. Okay. So we still don't really know what's happening to our +1 invuln. Still don't quite know. Somebody did ask straight up on the comment stream, and GW ignored it. Okay. So now they go on. The article gets kind of weird at this point. So now they talk about Dreadhost. So now we know Dreadhost is returning, and that they specialize in this Dakatare kata. Okay, which of course, if you remember, is the one that stops the pile-in and consolidates, and it's the one that gives you +1 attack to 1 damage. So this is the Dreadhost specialized kata, and so if you activate your special ability, you can use both of these in 1 turn and then still pick stance 2. And they also mention here their trait Okay, so their fighting style traits, remember the traits are the fighting style bonuses, okay? Their trait gives increased armor penetration, they didn't say what, and more chance to guarantee vital charge moves. So it looks like probably a version of the Golden Light of Morady stratagem now baked into a shield host trait. So I don't know, maybe it'll be 3d6, maybe 3d6 drop the lowest, maybe it'll be just a straight plus to charge. I don't know. But probably Golden Light of Morades is gone, and it will show up as a trait for Dreadhost, which is really cool to have it as a trait. Now, then they go on and show this fighting style Gilded Guardians, but then right after that they say pick this shield host. They don't mention what shield host. When you want to positively, when you absolutely positively want an enemy force incredibly dead. But this is a defensive traits. It has nothing to do with making people dead. So it's almost like they posted the wrong fighting style preview here. I think they maybe meant to post the Dreadhost fighting style, and they didn't. So now keep an eye on this page, because one thing that they do is they do change the previews if they're wrong. Like they changed the strength to a Quicksilver Talon, which we're going to come to. So they did update that to make it right, because 1,000 million people pointed it out that it was wrong. But no, I haven't seen anyone mention that this looks like it's the wrong preview. And I think it is, because what they're talking about in the text has nothing to do with this. And this is not Aquiline Shield, which comes later in the article. So this is a bonus preview of some other shield host, which we don't know. But basically this, called Gilded Guardians, allows you core units to heroic and reduces AP by 1. Reduces all AP 1 to AP 0. So this is a defensive type shield host. And so maybe this has to do with, I don't know, Shadow Keepers? I don't know. It's not clear. And this uses martial kata Salvus, which is the 5th kata, and we don't know what that is either. Okay, but this looks like it was a mistake. But oh, yes, you're correct. So sorry, in the fluff here it says Aquilon Shield. I think they just placed this in the wrong place. I think they meant to put this like one line lower when they started talking about Aquilon Shield. Okay, so this is the Aquilon Shield fighting style, Gilded Guardians. Okay, so it lets you heroic core units, which means basically everything other than like vehicles and telemons. And then gets the AP reduction, which is super nice. And then the Salvus Martial Kata, we don't know. And then here they previewed the new version of Shield of Honor stratagem. So this for 1 CP is the new version. And basically in the shooting phase, you get to protect one Imperium character. So it can be any Imperium character, but most likely it's going to be a Custodian or more likely a sister character. And basically within 6 inches of a core unit, they can't target them. So that's kind of cool. It's just basically an extra long version of Bodyguard, like a character protection. And it's changed from before. So before it was like Dreadnoughts. It says specifically Dreadnoughts. And then before it was you would still shoot, but you would resolve it as shooting the other person. And that was clunky and awkward, and it was a wordy stratagem. So this is much more elegant and straightforward. Okay, so that's the new Shield of Honor. All right, so now they go talk about Solar Watch. So now we know Solar Watch is back. So we've had Dreadhost, Aquilon Shield, Solar Watch, and Emperor's Chosen, presumably. So that's 4. And so you presume that Shadow Keeper is the other one and Emissaries is the other one, but we don't know that for sure. So Solar Watch is supposed to be fast moving. And so basically they have a change to their Sally Forth Warlord trait. Now in the Now it is that within a single infantry unit within 6 inches of your warlord can advance and charge. So this is great. Bikes are crying a little bit because it says infantry, but Venatari are loving this because they're 12-inch moving infantry and can advance with the other kata. Now, we don't know which kata is with Solar Watch, but it sounds like it might be that Callistus one that lets you advance and count as stationary and lets you extra advance. So if that is in fact the case, then you could have a whole turn where you basically have your Venatari move 12, advance with 2d6 and take the highest, shoot still at full normal shooting, and then still charge. That's pretty good. You could use this on the Blade Champ guy, so we can advance and charge. I mean, this is a nice change to the Sally Forth, and we finally get something in our book that can advance and charge. We wanted for a long time, although arguably most people wanted bikes to have that ability. But anyway, so there it is, advance and charge. All right, and this is the Solar Watch regalia, obviously, with the white. And so this is the redone Swift Silver Talon relic, which is the Guardian Spear relic. And basically, it allows the bearer to shoot and charge after falling back, which I believe is what it used to do as well. And now it has the upgraded strength of the new Guardian Spear, and it's -4 AP instead of -3 and 2 damage. So this initially was published at just strength 2, but now they've changed it to strength +2. So there we go. Rapid Fire 1 is kind of crappy. I think it was like Assault 2 or Assault 2 before, or Rapid Fire 2 before. I can't remember. I have to look it up. But so anyway, it's not a great relic, but it's all right. Okay, and then at the end, they just say they barely scratched the surface of 6 shield hosts combined with 6 martial katas. So I don't know what else there is to come other than the ones we haven't heard of. So, and that is that. Okay, so that was a reveal fest, and I'm super excited. I know there's people out there who think, it's not that good. Well, first of all, you don't know. We don't have everything. Second of all, there's so much flexibility that there's so many options that you probably can't even see right now. And plus, you don't have data sheets or any of that, stratagems. You're missing 80% of the information. So I don't know how people can make that particular judgment. Third of all, the missions are changing. So the whole game could be very different after the missions change. I mean, the game is nothing without its missions. So who knows? And these things are written with missions in mind. So who knows? I don't know how you could be disappointed. You should be very happy. We're getting new rules, lots of new rules, lots of flexibility, and some stuff is staying and some stuff is completely different. So that bodes well for us keeping some cool stuff. I would really like to keep Tanglefoot, please. But it's very exciting times, and hopefully get more previews. I don't know if we will or not. They've been previewed a lot already. I guess they could preview some relics and some warlord traits. That would be the only thing they haven't previewed yet. But I think it's super exciting, and people should look forward to it. All right. Let's go to questions. If people have questions in the chat, please type them down. I'm going to the Discord. Where's the question channel? Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay, so some of these questions were for the predictions episode that we had originally planned, so I'll just read them anyway. Do you think most units will get +1 wound? I think some units will get +1 wound, but we'll just have to see. Will Trajan be relegated to Supreme Commander or remain in HQ? Well, he is in HQ. Being Supreme Commander, I'm not sure if that's a relegation or not, but I think it's unlikely. Wardens will gain either fight on death. Okay, so Schreeder has some predictions. Wardens will gain fight on death or a longer HI. Hope Wardens get something. I have no idea what they're going to get, though. Alaris won't change much. Maybe bodyguard ability. I don't think they will get a bodyguard ability if it's going to show up under Aquilon Shield. I don't know. That's just my feeling on that. OBSEC. So we don't know what's going to happen with our OBSEC. Obviously, we have all just assumed that we're going to keep army-wide OBSEC, but that may not happen. So especially if they've given us, cheap troops that are OBSEC now, maybe they're going to take our army-wide OBSEC away. I don't know. It's concerning that we haven't heard about our main faction rule, assuming that Emperor's Chosen thing is not a faction rule. So, and we don't know what's happening with our invuln. So these are the two big anxieties right now. What's happening with our invuln and what's happening with OBSEC. Okay. Land Raider will gain assault ramp. I don't think the Land Raider is going to gain anything, quite honestly. And Contemptor gets a rule that makes it not terrible. Maybe. I mean, some of these things might make it okay, like moving and advancing and shooting, but it still needs to have better weapons than it has. So we'll see. Okay. Could Sisters, if made troops... Okay, so we know they're already troops already. Low points cost. So we don't know the cost of Sisters. Hopefully they don't go up. I guess it also depends on their other rules. You know, they've always been slightly more expensive because they put a premium on Psychic Abomination, but we don't know what's happening to those rules. So we'll have to see. Okay. Optimistically, new codex could include new transports. No, I don't think we're getting any new transports. There's a prediction from Mr. Funktastic about the Sister Psycho Grenades going to become like the GK ones. I guess it's possible. I know the Psycho Grenades really suck right now. They're basically kind of useless. Okay, question on Shield Host specific katas. So we kind of know some of that now. Do models count as extra when it comes to OBSEC? Again, we don't know. Okay, questions. Do you think we'll get an ability or stance or strat that'll allow Golden Boys to protect a unit regardless of it's a character or not? I don't think so. I think that's what you got. You got the Aquilon Shield. Rumors of stratagems being toned down. I'm not sure how good those rumors are, but we'll see. And I don't know what toned down means. I mean, we had some good stratagems, but everybody has good stratagems. Do you think we'll stay durable enough? I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, if our durability moves to further ahead in the attack chain, so the further ahead you are, the better, right? So like damage reduction at the end, feel no pain, is better if you don't have to take the feel no pains at all, so you make your saves. But then it's better if you don't even have to take saves by not wounding you as much, and then it's better to not even have to worry about getting wounded if they don't hit you as much. So, and then if you can't even make attacks on you, that's the best. Or if they're dead, then they can't do anything. So this is the hierarchy of goodness, and so the further forward you move in that chain, the better. So having transhuman hit is better than having transhuman wound, generally, most of the time. And then not being able to reroll hit is better than not being able to reroll wounds, and so forth. And so you don't need the 4-up invuln versus a 5-up if you don't even get to the point of having to take that many saves. So if you can reduce your number of saves by 33%, then losing an invuln from 4-up to 5-up probably ends up being the same. And certainly against mortals, having a 4-up is much better than just eating mortals. So who knows what's going to happen with the durability, and maybe this is all part of the plan. You know, they don't want our army to live on 4-ups anymore, which personally I find is tiring. So maybe it's better. Maybe some people you let them get hit, and some people you get the minus hit. Like, it just gives you a bit more flexibility. It's an interesting thing, actually. We'll see if this is a trend throughout the codex. Okay. Some people ask, what is love? Thoughts on the likelihood early next year release is January. Yeah, I think we're going to see it by end of January. Okay. No questions in the chat. Okay, so overall, I'm super excited. I'm remaining optimistic about this book. If anything, it's like a new book to play. Lots of new ways to play, exploring all the units again, looking for combos, stance combos, fighting style combos. There's a lot of exploration, even with just the stuff that we've been revealed. So I think you should be excited that we don't have to play the same old stuff anymore. And so I think that's the most exciting thing. We get new stuff to play with, one new model, some sisters to look at, lots of new ways to play in new missions. So I think that really just adds to why people should be excited, and no reason to be down at this time. So, okay, so we got a question. Do you think GSC will get a good enough boost that people want to split the box? So, my other army is GSC. I was painting it before my basement got wrecked, and I played some Crusade with GSC. So I am interested in the GSC. To me, so they revealed today the crossfire and exposed mechanic, where you like hit a unit with enough hits and they crossfire, and then if you actually create a crossfire, they're exposed, so you get reroll hits, then you get reroll wounds. And so that's an interesting mechanic. It sounds like a lot of bookkeeping. You got to put crossfire tokens, and I guess GSC is all about tokens. I don't know what's happening with blips and stuff like that. They already changed the perfect ambush stratagem, so I don't know what's happening with the whole blip thing, and that was very overly complicated. And so I'm optimistic that GSC is going to make a comeback. I just don't have any idea what that's going to look like. But I'm excited about that too, because I have that army, and I want to paint that and probably play it at some point too. So we'll see. But I do think that NIDs are already good. If GSC's good and Guard eventually gets their book, we're going to see a lot of Horde demons still to come. So I think people should get ready. Get ready. Do you think they'll lose from Golden Light? Like the Deep Strike stratagem? I don't think so. I mean, we might. I have no idea, really. But that's just like a useful stratagem that's in a lot of books, being able to Deep Strike something. So of note, guys, you can spend 1 CP and Deep Strike like 3 Sisters units. That can be very useful. Like outflank them, whatever it's called, Strategic Reserve. I can't remember what it's called. So anyway, so yeah, I don't know if we'll lose that strat. Obviously, we're keeping some strats. I mean, we've seen the Aquiline Shield strat already. We've seen similar relics. So we're keeping some stuff from the book. Hopefully, we keep Tanglefoot. So we're not losing everything, but we're probably losing some stuff. Some stuff is going to get transitioned into katas or fighting styles or whatever. So character unit upgrades for points instead of CP. I think that's going to be... So I don't think we're going to get like sergeant upgrades like Marines have, because we don't really have sergeants. So we're not getting that. I think will we be able to pay points to upgrade a whole unit? Maybe. I mean, that's in a lot of books. So I don't know. So the one thing that people asked about today and didn't get answers on was the Captain Commanders. That whole list of traits that you can give to the commander that used to be CP. I think if that still exists, is going to be points. So, and which ones still exist and which ones don't, I don't know. So we'll see. I think things, so you're asking about things like Victor of the Blood Games, Eternal Penitent. I think those will be points. That's a trend in all the other books. Upgrades like that become points. So which to me is okay as long as there's not a lot of points. We already spend a lot of points, so a few extra points here and there, no big deal. There's just less daggers. And the CP is just very useful. But yeah, I think we're going to lose Victor of the Blood Games, actually. I think that stratagem's not going to exist. But we might keep Penitent as a points upgrade for Dreadnoughts. We'll see. Or they could just give them all extra attack anyway, and we don't have to spend any points or CP. I like that idea. Okay, so that is tonight's show. I plan on doing a show next week on unit predictions, unless there's a lot more to talk about. So stay tuned, but we're flexible. And so thanks very much for watching, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for following, subscribing, being patrons, joining the Discord. Oh, where's the Discord? Here's the Discord. And being part of the community. It's exciting times, guys. Almost like pre-Christmas presents, so we can get a bit excited. Pick up your boxes, and we'll see everybody next time.